Bradford built the house in 1930. His family tried to sell it. They owned the house right up until 2016, and they actually lived there on and off in the summer. They would come down and spend their summers at the lake. The great-grandson and his family, and the great-granddaughter and her family. Then they decided they'd had enough. They wanted to get rid of it. They tried to sell it for years, and they couldn't. Nobody wanted to buy it because they were trying to sell it for about $1 million as a historic site, and it didn't take. So a local guy bought the property, and he told Marion County, "You got 30 days. You can have the house free, but you got 30 days. I want the property for the lake. Obviously, that's worth a lot more than this house." So Marion County went to the board of Marion County, some of the people, George Albright, if you've heard that name, he's the tax collector. His family grew up on the lake. His father was there the day of the shooting. And he went to the county commission and said, we need to buy this house and save it. So they spent $260,000, and a guy come down from Jacksonville. He jacked the house up, put it on a little barge. It's on YouTube. You can see some of this if you're not familiar with it. And floated the house across the lake. They hooked it up to a little boat and floated it across the lake. When you get up there, you'll see there's a path in front of the house that goes down and curves to the lake, because right in front of the house it's a bluff or a dike, and the house couldn't be lifted up over that. So they parked it down, you'll see, and it sat there about 30 days because they had to pour a slab of concrete to set the house on. And once the concrete cured, the guy from Jacksonville, he told the park ranger and everybody that the only thing that strapped down was, you'll see the china cabinet when we go in the house, in the dining room. There's a china cabinet. That was strapped down. Everything else stayed right where it was, floated across the lake. The guy said, "I float houses across the Gulf of Mexico for a living. This is nothing. Don't worry about it." So he came in, they floated it over. He went in, he jacked the house up, put a wheel under certain parts of it, about 5 wheels, and then with a remote control, he drove it, I don't know, an eighth of a mile, would you say? About an eighth of a mile up the woods, drove it up onto the slab of concrete, and then he stood there, he played with the remote, the house spun around 180 degrees, he went over, jacked the wheels out, took the wheels out, lowered it down, took his check for $260,000 and went home. So that's how the house is there now. So the Bradfords did try to sell it, they couldn't, and but everything in the house, 90% of everything you're going to see is original. It was here the day of the shooting. A lot of it, the Bradford owned a furniture company up in Tennessee, and we had an antique furniture dealer in the house and told me that the furniture is late 1920s, early 30s, which makes sense. The house was built in 1930, and it probably came with them. So a lot of this furniture was here from the 30s. Some of it's in the exact spot it was in the day of the shooting. So you'll see that. You get to that, when you get there, you go up the steps into the house. The top 4 steps are the original steps. They had to add 2 because they couldn't lower the house down as far as it was in the original spot. But, so when you walk up the steps, you'll see the date of April 14th, 1930, the day they opened the house. The family took over the house when it was built. So. Anything else? The rest we'll talk about up there, gangsters. If you're interested in gangsters, hopefully. Because I like to talk about gangsters. And I'll get to that at the end. And one of them involves Al Capone. That's what made me think of it. So I'll give you a little piece of thing about Al Capone, not too much, unless you ask. Then we can go on that subject for a long time. So, but this is a gangster tour, and Al Capone is considered a mobster. And the difference is, well, this was part of the ghost, what happened with the ghost. But the difference between a mobster and a gangster, mobsters never left town. Al Capone never left Chicago. He ran Chicago. Gangsters never knew where they were going to be. They robbed a bank and went from town to town. So that's, technically speaking, a mobster, like the mafia, they run a certain city. Where gangsters go all over the place. So,
like Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde are considered gangsters. Yep. John Dillinger, Babyface Nelson, Pretty Boy Floyd, and I'm going to touch on a little bit of them and tie this all together for you. So I hope it's interesting for you. But you had the you know, the Roaring '20s was something, because you also had Prohibition going on during this gangster era. You had Depression. The other huge news that captivated America was the Lindbergh baby kidnapping was going on. And the Stokes Monkey trial, Leopold and Loeb, remember the famous murder in Chicago? So there was a lot going on.
They didn't have a lot to lose.
No, people were down, they were desperate,
Yeah.
especially in the Midwest. Well, you know, there was no luck, and people were going hungry, and some of them decided to take the matter into their own hands. So.
We got one individual in there firing us with a two-story. Fire TMT3. 6-1. Casualties coming in. Shoot it with the fucking rocket. Then that's good.
Because there's a weight going up.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? It's so funny.
They steal.
And then the closet, it's, I mean, now it's kind of our cleaning closet, but yeah, that was all here. And you can open any doors you want, cabinets. Some of these were put in though after the shooting.
It's interesting they had a downstairs toilet.
Luxury house, huh?
Well, you know, for 1930, this was our house. And Marion County spent 10 grand, I think, right, to put air conditioning in. Because they said that, you know, over there the house was open. And they told it, the family had told Marion County, with the windows open in August, you slept with a blanket because the breeze off the lake. But once it got here, it's closed up most of the year. This stuff would have rotted with the heat, so they had to put air conditioning in. They also had to rewire all the electric for code before we could bring anybody in. So,
We've got a lot of crosswind.
and there's still a lot of work to do yet. And you'll see the steps when we go up, you'll see why I said they can't do handicap accessible, they have to tear all these, all through this wall. The back, the closet, the floor wasn't refinished in the closet. Marion County was here, the forensics, they said there's still blood stains in there.
Yeah, there's
Whose
blood
it is?
stain.